All right, welcome everyone to our Energetics of Sales Masterclass. Might be a series because, like I said, I don't know if I can really fit all that I want to fit into today. We're going to spend about the next hour and a half or 2 hours together, if that's cool. And if there's any questions, just let me know. And I'll probably be presenting for most of this, but you can always put, I have a question or something like that in the chat just so I can hold it for the end and make sure that I do leave room for that if you guys have some stuff coming up. So that being said, what I have so far for our agenda is three things. So one is understanding the three frames for sales success. Okay. So understanding the three frames for sales success. Two, a few exercises for high-level energetic performance. And three, some workshopping around your beliefs around sales, around money, a few other things around fear. So that's the agenda for this. Okay, so I'm just going to pretty much jump right in. Is that cool with you guys? All right, awesome. So the very first frame out of the three frames, let's hope I can speak today, out of the three frames for sales success is called the moral authority frame. Okay. Now, what I mean by frames are basically ways of thinking and operating that allow you to dictate outcomes to a much larger extent than if you didn't adopt those frames, those beliefs, those energetics. Okay, so that's what I mean by frames. So the very first frame we're going to talk about is called the moral authority frame. Okay, and basically how we're going to use this frame is that you're going to be able to have complete influence over your calls because the person that you're speaking to, when you're using the moral authority frame, they believe and genuinely feel that you have their best interest at heart. Okay. So I can give it just a few examples. Like, for instance, when you're a child and, if you have a decent relationship with your parents, when they tell you to do something, you do it. Why? Because they have moral authority in your eyes, and because you understand that they have your best interests in heart and in mind. Another example is like, for instance, a police officer, if they like come out in the road in the middle of the night with the flashlight and kind of wave you down and say, hey, you can't go down this road, you have to go around. You don't really question, you just think, okay, that's probably what's best. Maybe there's some crime, maybe there's a crash, maybe there's a fire, maybe there's some sort of danger, and you just go through the detour, right? You're not like, oh, screw this guy, like he's trying to cheat me, and you drive around him, right? You don't even know that person, but because they're showing up in a certain way, in a certain uniform with moral authority, you do what they say. Another is like a trusted doctor or healer, right? I don't know if you've ever had like a very beautiful doctor, or a very beautiful healer that was in your life that was guiding you through pain, transformation, letting go. And they just said, hey, here's what I need you to do. Here's how I need you to let go during our session. And you just listen and you do it because you know that they have moral authority and they have your best interest in mind. So here's a few ways that we can ensure on the call that we can really successfully implement the moral authority frame. Okay, the very first is high-level communication. Okay. And there's a few examples of what high-level communication is going to look like. The most important one, for sure, is active listening. Okay. The most important one is active listening. Almost like making the sales call a meditation in which you're so tuned into hearing them. Because it's so common when I'm like reviewing sales calls, and even myself sometimes, I'm not perfect at this, where I just see the prospect, potential client is saying something and they're not actually heard whatsoever. You just hear whatever you want to hear because you're not practicing active listening. And this happens in all of our relationships, all of our conversations, right? I don't know if you've ever had that experience where you express something and then someone kind of like responds totally different than what you kind of just revealed your heart to be. You're kind of like confused. You're like, way that it just like detracts from the intimacy because it shows that they weren't actually listening. They're just waiting to speak. Okay. So we want to almost create our listening ability as like one of the top listeners on the planet and just hear them and truly hear them. Part of how we can demonstrate that we're actively listening is by asking specific and skilled questions. This is part of the high level communication. Okay, specific and skilled questions. And how we want to use these is for really two functions. One is we want to allow them to go deeper into whatever part of the call we're in, while simultaneously demonstrating that we're actively listening. So for instance, someone could be sharing about a goal or a pain or whatever. Instead of just saying like, okay, and asking the next question, you could ask the next question in such a way that it demonstrates that you heard exactly what they just said. Okay. You guys following so far? Awesome. So let me think of an example. You know how you said earlier on the call that the most important thing in the world to you was helping way more people and doing so in a way that wasn't burning you out, that wouldn't burn you out? What exactly would that look like for you? What is your vision around your work and how you want to make that come into the world? Right? It's like a vision and desire question, but it takes something from earlier on that they said. Maybe that wasn't the best example, but it takes something from earlier on that they said and repeats it in such a way that it naturally leads into the question. Okay. So asking those skilled and specific questions allows you to go deeper, right? What specifically would stress-free working look like for you? Right? How exactly would you want to be helping people if you could help them in any way? So it's going deeper and it's showing that you're already hearing them. All right, so that's one. And I'm just kind of breezing through these a little bit just to try to give you some of the most high level principles to begin activating. So that's the first one, is high level communication for moral authority frame. The second way to gain the moral authority frame is by being an advocate and leader. Okay. And what I mean by this is that really when you come into your work, when you go onto these calls, your job is to help people do what's best for them, right? Not just what's best for you. And if you're so hyper focused on helping them do what's best for them, they're going to feel that. And the thing is, what's best for the person is almost always going to be outside of their comfort zone, right? And generally, human nature is that we fight to stay in comfort zone. So that's what it means to advocate for someone. Because a lot of the times it's like, hey, you know, what happens if you don't change? They're like, well, there's no other option. It's not true. It's like there is another option because you've been doing it, which is why you haven't changed yet. Right? So some people think that there's no other option, but they're doing what the other option is currently. And so to advocate for them means to really help them see that and then choose what's actually best for them and help them overcome their rationalizations. And to also just feel in your heart and in your soul that sales is not something you do to somebody, but sales is something you do for somebody. So I'm going to just give a few examples. Like once, I mean, it's happened many, many times, but in our last Marma therapy bodywork training that we had in LA a few months ago, this was, I think, in March. We had a great group of people come, about 14 students, to learn bodywork and learn Ayurveda. And we gave out a few partial scholarships. And one of the men that was in the group, when it was our graduation circle, last day of the training, we had an epic week together. he broke down and just started crying in front of everybody. And he said, I'm so happy that you helped me say yes to this. He said, I wasn't going to share this, but I was contemplating ending my life before coming here. I was contemplating ending my life before coming here. And you helped me decide to come. And I was going to try to bail. And you helped me make that leap. He said, I wanted to just thank you so much because I feel completely restored. I feel completely rejuvenated. I feel hope. And so, unless you get it across in your head and your heart that sales is not something you do to somebody, but sales is something you do for somebody, you will have some sort of resistance towards sales, and you won't really be able to advocate for people because you feel like you're manipulating them or, beating them to do something they don't want to do. But it's something they want to do. It's just they haven't been able to advocate for themselves enough to change, even when they think there's no other option. The thing is, they've been doing the other option. Okay. So we've literally had multiple people in our programs share something along those lines, that they were, in a really dark place or potentially considering ending their lives or whatever. The third way to gain moral authority is belief in your prospect. Okay. So I don't know. I don't want to use this as a blanket statement, but from my experience, everyone has at least 1, 2, 3 people in their lives that believe in them more than you believe in yourself when you're down in yourself. Does anybody have someone like that in their life here? Someone that believes in you more than you believe in you? Yeah. What we want to do is try to be one of those people when we're on a call. I've had that, like, I feel like my life was almost not in like a Judeo-Christian, like saved sort of way, but just like that's like the almost like the language that comes to my mind when I think about those people. Like, this person's almost like saved my life from going down a totally different pathway that wouldn't have been anywhere near as beautiful. Just the way I was thinking about life, the way I was acting, my habits. And a few key people that just saw me in my highest light, right? And like brought that out of me and like cultivated and like, like fanned that spark of goodness within myself. Because the thing is, it is not very hard to see the bad in people. It doesn't take a very brilliant person, right? And we're kind of trained to do that in one sense. Like, you see a giant white sheet, even if it's like, like a bed sheet that has like the finest, most expensive thread count and fabric, and there's one, black stain on it. Your eyes go immediately to the stain. Just like looking, it's like an evolutionary trait to like look for what's wrong, look what may be going wrong. And so it doesn't take a very good person to see, or a very great person to see the bad in others. It doesn't. But it does take a great person to, in anybody's heart, see the goodness in their heart and be able to cultivate that spark and bring it out. Okay. So looking for the good in the people that you're speaking to and holding them in high regard as one of their greatest well-wishers or heroes would. Okay. Because honestly, in sales, most of the time, people are buying your faith in them. That's honestly what's happening. So what needs to happen is that your belief about why they can needs to be stronger than their belief about why they can't. It needs to be way stronger. Right? Because they can sell you on why they can't, why they shouldn't, why they wouldn't, how other people in their life haven't, or you can simply show them how they can. And that's holding them in high regard beyond their circumstance, right? And one thing to keep in mind is like, there's always going to be people who have it worse off than you, who had it worse off than you, that are further along than you. So what's that about? There's always going to be people who had it worse than you, who are now further along than you. And not like in a comparison, judge, shame sort of way to look at that statement, but just like, what is that? It's how they've nurtured and cultivated their own internal world, and also mentors that they've surrounded themselves with and brought out the best in them, and created a path that they didn't know was possible. It's like, sure, all your reasons why you can't are valid. So do you want to be the sort of person that says, here's why I couldn't, right? Because of my dad, because of the economy, because of COVID, because of whatever? Or do you want to be the type of person that says, in spite of X, Y, and Z, I did? And we want to have that as a strong internal frame, as the belief that we hold for others and the space that we hold for others. Because it's not your job to not believe in this person. It's not your job to remove possibility. It's your job to create possibility. So I've had to relax that many times in my sales conversations, where I'm just like, I don't know if this person's going to do it. And then they like shock me and just are amazing. They find a way to make it happen. They get incredible results. Like, I'm just like, wow. And to think like part of me almost wanted to like shut down the conversation, because some part of me was triggered by them and how they're thinking and where their beliefs were at. That made me almost want to close off and not have the opportunity open for them. So interesting. So yeah, it involves faith, right? Belief, faith, interchangeable, even without taking it to like a Judeo-Christian sort of place. Faith is just trust by experience. Every day you walk, you have faith in the law of gravity. You have faith that the sun's going to come up. There's always faith. Faith is always at play. Belief is always at play. And faith allows someone to contemplate and comprehend things beyond one's present perspective and understanding. It allows one to open up the doors of possibility outside of our own, capacity, our own conditioning, our own prejudices, our own limiting lenses through which our conception has been formed. And without faith, we're generally limited to the authority of our own opinions, which is why faith is so friggin' important. Right? It's not one of my mentors. It's one of the great gurus in our lineage. He says, I wish he was my mentor, like IRL, like in living flesh. But he says, one who accepts the mind as guru accepts a fool for a disciple. And I always loved that. I was like, damn, they'd be roasting people 500 years ago in these sacred texts. I'm like, they knew how to throw shade. That's honestly one of the things that brought me deeper into this particular spiritual path, is because I saw great saints like almost like cutting jokes. And there's like a saying in my tradition that says, never trust a saint who can't dance, never trust a saint who can't joke, along those lines. So yeah, one who accepts their mind as guru accepts a fool for a disciple. And so without faith in teacher, mentors, someone outside of us, God, universe, nature, like we're just going to be generally limited to our own opinions. And those opinions are the cause of the bad effects in our life, because everything's cause and effect. So that is the importance of belief. All right. Are you guys following? You guys with me? Awesome. So that's moral authority. I just breezed through it as best as I could, but there's 3 ways to do it. One's high level communication, right? Active listening, asking skilled and specific questions. The second is being an advocate or leader, right? Helping people get out of their comfort zone and do what's best for them, right? Not just what's best for you. Belief in prospect. So actually believing somebody, using faith, installing faith. Okay. That's the first frame. All right. The second frame is called the visionary frame. All right. And what the visionary frame allows us to do is have complete independence of the outcome. Okay. It allows us to work in complete independence of the outcome of the call. Leela's asking, where's the line between belief in someone's potential versus your goals don't make you unique, your actions do? The thing is, I don't want to shut down people's goals, but it's just one of the elements of holding a frame is actually believing that they can do it, right? It's not necessarily that their goals, are so unique, but that we believe that they are capable and able to take action should they choose. And they are capable to achieve particular outcomes should they choose. Right? Yeah. And that belief is mixed with the advocacy, because what good is the high goal and all the vision, whatever, if they aren't taking action, if they aren't advocating for themselves, right? So it's a combination of these different frames that allows the person to actually move forward. It's not just one frame alone is going to do it, or one, part of it alone is going to do it. So the second frame is the visionary frame, which allows us complete independence of the outcome, because one, you truly feel like you're the best in the world at what you do. Okay. If that feels weird for you, only you are you, and only you can do what you do. And you're offering your unique lens, perspective, guidance, mastery, processing of experiences, etc., as what people are basically getting. Like, people are basically buying you, okay, when they sign up, especially in this like solopreneur, solo coach kind of thing, where it's not like some big corporate conglomerate of like, okay, cool, you're never going to see my face and you're never going to interact with me as the founder. For all of you guys, like, the people are basically buying you. And so you need to have a conviction in yourself that I am the best at being me. I'm the best in the world at doing what I do. My unique flavor of love, my unique flavor of skill sets, my unique flavor of care, my unique devotion, which in a more esoteric spiritual sense is the reason we're here, in my opinion, from my perspective. You're here because only you can give the flavor of love that you have to give. That's it. They need your help. That's the second one, right? Not the other way around. So first, you're the best in the world at what you do. Second, they need your help, not the other way around. 3, they're lucky if you make them an offer. Okay. They are lucky if you make them an offer to join. And 4, if they say no, it is their loss. Right. And I want to fine tune that last statement. Right. Because if someone's a genuine no and they're like, it's not going to help me, blah, 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 like it's not aligned with them, that's not a loss, right? That's a win. But if someone's like, yes, this is the line, blah, 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 and for whatever reason, they're a no, that's their loss. Okay, so this is kind of like the feeling of detachment by having these four things installed. But if we're detached from the outcome, what should we be attached to? Okay, what we want to do is have 100% attachment to the process. 100% attachment to the process. So what do I mean by that? We want to get to the truth of the transformation they want, the problem that they're facing that's keeping them back. If they're truly committed to aligning their actions with their words. If you are 100% attached to the process, what it does is it allows you to be completely detached from the losses, like rejection, not closing a deal, etc. Because if you're following the process 100%, and you're really getting what they want, and you're really understanding what keeps them back, and you're really committed to helping them align their actions with their words, and they still don't go through, you've done every single thing on your side to show up in service to this person. And sometimes people just won't choose. That's okay. You've done everything on your side if you follow the process, which allows you to have a clean conscience and just let go of the result. A big part of the visionary frame too is actually having fun. Actually having fun in your business, in your life, and on the call. That's another one I forgot in the topic. That's important. I kind of made like a shady reel the other day that was about like me not understanding the wellness entrepreneur that's like stressed AF. And I don't get it. Like I've been there, and it's like then recalibrating, okay, what's my responsibility to myself? I have to be well. If I'm going to sell wellness, like I need to be well. I need to follow what I'm actually teaching. That's one thing that's going to build huge conviction in your process, actually make you an authority. Is like, I am a living testimonial every day of what I'm teaching and selling. It's a weird idea, right? But just leading by example. Okay. So just a few other like tiny notes on detachment. You want to be detached from your wishes and attached to service. Okay. You don't need this client to sign up. You want someone to sign up, but it doesn't need to be them. Okay. And lastly, there's literally no way to F it up. The only way to F it up is to just stop. If you keep going and keep getting feedback in your process and keep looking at your own sales calls, refining your own sales calls, getting feedback from it, there's literally no way to sell, no way to fail, no way to sell, right? So just kind of having that etched in your heart, like it's impossible for me to mess up the calls with those who are meant to work with me. It's impossible. That's another visionary frame. It's impossible. Okay, y'all with me? Awesome. Let's take a deep breath. Exhale. Frame number 3 is the expert frame. This is our last frame we'll go over. Okay. So in the context of the discovery call, you are the complete expert in your process in this context. Okay. And because you're an expert, you can determine exactly what the shortest path will be for your potential client to get the outcome that they want. Right. And you're not going to prescribe anything until you've gone through your process of seeing where they're at. just like a doctor, just like any other expert. They're not going to prescribe any they know what it's like to get someone from point A to point B because they're an expert at that process. And they're not going to prescribe a roadmap until they're very clear on the problem and the goal. Okay. So you need to know that, like, for instance, I'll just try to give an example. At one point when I was trying to upgrade my offerings, and I think like the highest level thing I had sold was like 2,400 or $3,000, and it was like Ayurveda trainings and blah blah blah. I wanted to start doing like high level Ayurveda retreats for wealthy people and like cook for them and, give them treatments, give them coaching, like clear out their entire cabinet of like junk foods and like put everything back in like the right way and like make their house awesome and holistic. And I was like, man, what's something that would be like a delicious price for that? Like for me, like what would be like inspiring for me? And I was like, 7 grand. I was like, oh my God, I've never charged 7 grand for anything. And it was like so edgy for me. It was so like edgy for me to think that price and to like even imagine charging someone that price. But I knew in my heart, like if someone actually goes through this, like it is a bargain. Like it's a bargain. So that's how I've always priced things, is like what's edgy for me and what do I also see as a bargain. 7 grand was like, that's edgy and exciting for me. And it feels really supportive for me. And I also know that I'm going to deliver so much value that it's going to be a bargain. And the thing is, like, I was like, how do I find celebrities and how do I find and I'm not going to go into a bunch of storytelling, but basically I did get the opportunity to be on the phone with high level executives for Google and Apple and different people, or like, kind of micro celebrities, etc. And I kind of faced this confrontation within myself that I was like, man, I'm like a 23-year-old dude. Oh yeah, friends with the Prince of Dubai, like closely worked with the Prince of Dubai as like an advisor. Anyways, I was like talking to people like this, and I was like feeling like such a, I don't know, like amateur or something. And I was like, damn, like these people are so high level and like so badass and like so empowered and wealthy and blah, blah, blah. Like, how are they going to buy compared to how I see myself? And what was really important to me, like after it only hit me, like after I started speaking with people like that, that they literally have zero idea what to do with their health. I was like, oh, figure that. You're like incredible at like building like billion-dollar companies and blah, 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 and like meeting all these incredible people and influencing and speaking and high level presentations. And you've completely neglected this whole entire part of your life and have zero clue what you're doing. When I talk to you, you have zero authority on the subject. And I have a lot, right? I'm not like Dr. So-and-so or whatever, but I have a lot more authority than you do, way more. And I was like, I can sell to these people. I was like, because in that context, I am the expert, right? I'm not teaching them how to make another Apple executive move or meet another prince or whatever. I'm teaching them how to get from point A to point B with their health in this context. And who's the expert? I am. And so that really helped me because it allowed me to work with a lot higher level people who are accomplished in so many other regards, but they totally suck at this one regard, in one area of life. So yeah, you need to understand that you are the expert in this context and hold yourself as one. Okay. And even if you're like, oh, I'm not really an expert, blah, 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 like think about what the general population knows, and then think about what you know about that subject. You know like 10 trillion times more than what they know. right? Because like in my mind, I was also like, well, I'm not like an Ayurveda expert. There's people that are so much further along than me when it comes to Ayurveda and have like 3 PhDs and have studied for like 47 years and treated tens of thousands of people. Like, of course, that's a, in my mind, that's an expert. But I'm like, then when I look at the, like, here's where I'm at, and like, here's where they're at, and then here's where my prospects at. And to get the transformation from point A to point B, do they need a triple PhD, 47 years of experience person? Or will 80% of the knowledge that I know that's not getting into the realm of specialty and super high level expertise, will that actually get them there? No, I know that 80% that I know will get them there for sure. And that was my experience over and over and over again with clients. Right. So, anyways, I don't know if this is helpful. I'm just kind of like sharing some of my own mental frames that I've had to go through of like, am I an expert? Am I not an expert? Like, how much can I posture myself? And like, I don't want to be fake. I don't want to be inauthentic. All those things came through my mind. So, this is how I've dealt with that. Um, so, we want to take a clear leadership frame at the beginning of the call, by framing the call. Here's exactly why you're here. Right. Right. We're on this call because you reached out about tripling your fertility through X, Y, and Z method. And you're not like, oh, how's it going? I had Taco Tuesday last night and I was out with my girl, Charlene. And, it's like nobody cares. And it's not how an expert holds themselves. They're not there for you, they're there for them. Just get that about human nature, right? I'd like to think y'all are here for me because I'm just like wonderful and whatever, but y'all not, and I'm okay with that. Um, what we want to make sure is, even though we're the expert, we do not want to go into any coaching before fully diagnosing their situation. Zero coaching, right? Just like the doctor doesn't write his prescription before he's done the full intake. They're like, oh, well, I've been going through this thing since I was 5 years old with my mom. And you're like, tell me, how does that feel? And like you immediately go into some coaching process and like try to unlock their deepest trauma right there. No, but I've seen it happen so many times. It's incredible. Instead, what we want to do is let them sit in the weight of their pain. That's it. While simultaneously, just like a doctor would, we're not going to ever wield any judgment upon them for any reason. It's also really important to like not care about getting answers that you want to hear or that people want the goal for the reasons you think they should want it for. Right? Like, well, tell me, why do you want to make that 20 grand a month or whatever? What would that give you? Right? And you're like trying to like, would you give back to your community? Would you build a house for your mom? Would you, whatever. You're like implanting things that you feel like they should want it for when really you just want to hear them. Okay. So here's a few ways we can establish that expert frame, which is our third frame. One is cadence and tonality, the speed at which we speak, the tone that we use while we speak. You see how even just when I slow down, you begin to listen more. My pitch goes down, you begin to listen more. Whereas if I'm like this and we got to do this opposite, all the time, the same, you know what I'm saying? Big difference. Another thing is silence and pausing. You want to ask a question and then shut up. Stop talking. Pause. I don't know if you have ever like listened to really, really powerful, like On MLK Day, this past MLK Day that we had, I like went through a bunch of Martin Luther King's speeches and I literally just got chills. Like I hadn't like in depth, like gone through a bunch of them, but I started to like listen and I like, even just now I had hair stand up, like I had it happen in my skin because I just remembered it. Just the power and the presence and the pause. It's like I could try to deliver his same exact words and it wouldn't bring tens of thousands of people to tears because so much of the communication is not in the words. So you can have a cool script and a cool pitch and all these cool things to say and like philosophical lines that you like, and no one cares. Because what impacts is the tonality, the way you use silence, the way you pause, that causes emphasis, not the amount of words that comes out of your mouth. And I tried to reel myself in for this workshop because I had so many ideas and I was like, bring it in, Yamuna. What's the essential things you want to say? Because it's not going to be powerful if I just blab and blab and blab and blab. Okay. Another thing, don't interrupt. And only interrupt if the person is like way off topic and keeps going and going and going. Then you want to interrupt, full permission. Otherwise, I've seen so many calls that I've reviewed where the person's sharing about their desire and you just cut right in. Where the person's sharing about a doubt and you just cut right in. Immediately, intimacy is broken, like downgraded. Another example of tonality, just to bring it home, then we'll move on, is that tone opens the psychology and the words direct the conversation. Okay, tone opens the psychology and words direct. Words are their directive. And so downward tonality. Do you get what I mean? Instead of upward tonality. Whenever you're speaking in upward inflection like this, and you're talking about your pitch and you're doing whatever, and it's all inflecting upward, it means you're uncertain about what you're saying. It means you're looking for some validation that what you're saying is okay, good, agreeable, whatever. Whereas when you speak in downward tonality, these are the exact 4 steps you're going to need to go from this to this. Right? Every noise that you make with your mouth or with your nose causes a psychological reaction in the person you're speaking to and manipulates how they respond, which is why you want to shut up, why you want to be concise with your language, etc. Someone's telling you about their vision and you're like, oh, love that. What it does psychologically, right, which is like obviously a exaggerated example, you wouldn't do it that quick, but I've seen many calls of you guys where it's like, me too. And I'm like, what happens is that they psychologically manipulate themselves to say more things along the lines of what they think you would like hearing, instead of what they would actually genuinely respond if you were not interjecting with some sort of noise or body language. Wow, yeah, wow. They're psychologically manipulating themselves to get acceptance just on a subtle way, in a subtle way. And it's how we're doing communication and sales is not how you would have a normal conversation, right? Generally speaking. Like in a normal conversation, that's fine. Obviously, we do it all the time. But in a sales conversation, you want to be quite neutral so that they can actually just give you their reasons. They can actually just give you their fears instead of manipulating based on what your body, yeah, wow, yeah, me too, love it, instead of what that's directing them towards to get some sort of subtle approval. You guys following? Because and questions, asking questions are a way where we can get people to voluntarily give us their fears, desires, and beliefs. Right? Humans are psychologically wired to answer questions. When people ask you questions, you don't think, should I answer this or not? You just think about, how will I answer this? And then you answer it. So it doesn't feel like you're doing something to somebody, but rather you're having them volunteer their beliefs, their fears, their desires, their thoughts on that. And it's so important because nobody's going to buy for your reasons. So we need to know theirs. And if they do buy for your reasons, it will be an impulsive buy and they'll regret it and they'll be not a very fun client. All right. These are the three frames. These are the three frames. Okay. So moral authority, visionary, and expert. Those are the three frames we want to use and employ to their greatest ability on a sales call. All right. Clear. Awesomeness. Now, I'm going to share a few little things for energetic performance, just a few like kind of quick fire practices and things that have really helped me. Yes, you're using all those three frames at the same time, Shayna, to the greatest ability. I'm going to share some exercises for top energetic performance and sales calls and just some simple reminders and things you can do. And then I'm going to go into the final part of our time, which is a little workshop. So my first note's going to be on practices for conviction. Okay. Practices develop deep conviction because, again, so much of the sales process is based on belief, conviction, faith. That's all it is, right? Sales is a transference of belief. That's all it is. So I'm going to provide one resource. I'm going to give you guys the notes from this talk, and there's going to be like a little link, but one of them is called a Sacred Seven worksheet. It's by one of my previous mentors, and it's like something you can fill out each day to really energetically hone yourself in. Ask me for it if somehow I don't put this up. Another is just, I'm going to just fire off on some that have helped me. One is this statement, this kind of just like little sutra or mantra of, I know who I am, I know how I serve, and I'm here. I know who I am, I know how I serve, and I'm here. I had that like sticky noted on my wall for years, just like to remind myself, like in my heart, like, like I know who I am, I know how I serve, and I'm here, I'm available. Okay. Another thing we can do for conviction, is that Paul Selig? It might be. I heard it from another mentor, but it very well could be. I'm not sure the original source. Morning priming is super essential. So exercising, meditating, doing breath work, getting all your energy right so you feel nourished and you feel like you can show up with complete presence. Okay, morning priming. Another way to build conviction is actually honoring what you say to yourself. This is one of the most important, right? By actually following your calendar, by actually following your projections of your goals, by actually following through on what you say you're going to do. Because if you're lying to yourself, why should anyone have faith in you? Not like in a mean way, but just like if you can't follow yourself and your own words, why should they follow you? Okay, and I've shared about this before in the past. Like, if you, I think it was in the ways to keep your business small, or one of those lessons in the past. But the best way to do it is just by making your to-do list so small that you absolutely do everything on the to-do list, and you keep doing that, and then you can increase the quantity of the things on the to-do list. But the worst thing is to have 20 things on your list and then only do 10 of them, because it breaks trust with yourself and your word begins to mean less and less and less. So then when you talk about your goals and vision, it's more of like a dopamine hit than an actual reality. And we want to close that gap between what we say and what actually happens in reality. And that's how we do it. And that means like actually creating boundaries around what you commit yourself to. It might mean saying no to more things, having the power to say no to more things, so that everything you're a yes to, you actually do. And everything you're a no to, you don't do, or you do after you do the yes stuff. And that's really, really powerful. That's been powerful in my relationship with Leela. It's been powerful in my relationship with my friends. Just knowing 100% what I can commit to and not commit to. And then 100% as to the best of my ability, like following through and doing what I say I'm going to do. Just builds so much power in life. I'm going to make 2 sales this week. You actually do it, right? I'm going to set 15 appointments this week. Actually do it. It builds such a tidal wave of momentum that basically you become unstoppable. And whatever you do, you have a real sobriety. Whatever you set your goals as, excuse me, you have a real sobriety around, because you know what it takes to actually achieve it. But then it becomes easier because you're not playing a game with yourself and mistrusting yourself and disappointing yourself and then shaming and guilting yourself and having meta emotions about your emotions and like all this bullshit that keeps people back. Nah. So that's another practice is looking at testimonials and wins daily. So every day, like before you start looking at your personal wins, anything you want to celebrate about yourself, about in your personal life, in your professional life, in your clients' lives. Another way you can do this is, I mentioned this the other day, but having an altar just in your own heart with your clients' faces on it. Okay. In your own mind and heart, like seeing all the clients' faces of like people you've helped. Maybe they don't even have to be clients, just anyone you've uplifted in their life, anyone who's benefited from you. Just remembering that, holding that in your brain, holding that in your heart every day. Coming back to that truth of your gifts, of the way you serve, the way you bring joy, the way you bring healing. Coming back to that. Weighing out the other alternatives of your process. That's another way to get conviction. Like for Susan, it's like, do you want to spend $20,000 in 6 years trying to conceive with all these other surgeries and methodologies, or my method? Like weighing all the other options compared to your methodology that are much more painful, much more strenuous, much more expensive, much less effective, etc. Just looking at all that. Just being, it's no effing brainer to work with me. That's another way to build conviction. This one's a little bit more tender, but weighing the alternatives to you not doing your business in your own life. What if I just stopped helping women in their pregnancies? What if I never helped another person with Ayurveda again? What if I never helped someone heal again? What if I never mentored another person ever again? What would that look like? Um, Also, another way to have conviction and have a lot of power is to have faith in your ability to make things right. Okay. With clients, on sales calls, etc. Like every now and then you may make a mistake with someone. But if you have faith in your own ability to make things right, there's times we've messed up. There's times we've maybe sold people into a program that weren't 100% a fit. And part of us knew that. And then they really struggled. And we're just like, worst case scenario, just refund them. Like having faith in your ability to make things right. Oh, we really messed up on this, this, and that. Here's a way we can make it up to you. Hey, I really didn't follow through on what I said I was going to follow through, but I trust in my ability to make it right. That's another way to build conviction yourself. All right. Let's take a deep breath in and let it go. Should I go into a few more simple practices or reminders, or should I move on to the next section? Raise your hand for simple practices. Yes. Raise your hand for move on. Okay. Nobody was saying. All right. Here's a few other reminders about sales, and then we'll move on. You can't help them if they want to play the role of the authority. Okay? You can't, only one person can be the authority in the call. If they want to flash how they already know, blah, 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 cool. Why should we continue having this conversation? It seems to me like you really want to be in the leader role right now. Am I right or wrong about that? Seems to me like you really need to be in control of this conversation. Am I right or am I totally off? Like I could be wrong. Seems to me like you already seem to know everything that I'm telling you, and yet you still don't have the result. Why is that? Seems to me like knowing is only one part of the equation and acting is another part that you have failed to do. Would having help with that, keeping yourself accountable and having a community, etc., help you do that? Or do you feel like knowing what you know is enough and you're happy with where you're at? Right? Like I'm giving like specific sharp things just to drive across like your internal frame. And I've said some of those things on calls. Some people want to just like posture on the call of like how much they know and how they, it's just like not the space for it. Like learning from somebody else means to humble yourself. That's it. Like if there's this one glass of water that's full and there's another glass of water that's only 25% full, this one has to go lower in order to be filled, which means to be humbled, humble, right? But Americans, we're like so independent, whatever. Like we would try to like make some like tube that goes across and like connects the two cups and like levels them all out instead of humbling ourselves. Like drill some holes, put a tube across. Now they're going to be equal. But it's like, no, you got to humble yourself. All right. Then you can be filled by someone else's mastery, someone else's gifts. Someone's not willing to do that. No problem. Another one, being nice is performative. All right. Being nice is performative. And I'm looking at a few of y'all. Lovely peeps. Y'all know who you is. Being nice is a performative. Catch yourself if you're being nice as a tactic and take it as a huge red flag that the other person is probably not taking this seriously enough. And neither are you. Okay, another one. Expecting your clients not to pay. That has to be renounced. Okay, expecting that people will say no or expecting that people will not pay, you have to renounce that. Okay, another one. Practicing your price by saying 4 times the price in the mirror until it feels great. If your price is $2,500, you can practice saying the price of my program's $10,000. Keep doing that till it feels great. Then by the time you're on the call and you're like, the price of my program is $2,500, you're like, holy shit, this is a bargain. Because you've already energetically practiced raising your standards. Okay. All right, I could keep rapid firing, but I'm gonna stop. Let's take a 3-minute break until 10 after, and then we'll complete this workshop. All right, we'll be right back. All right. So I want to ask you guys some really important questions. And if you don't have somewhere to write, take the next 5 seconds, grab somewhere to write, or just open up a notepad on your desktop. Because this is how we're going to do some inner exploration that'll help us unlock way higher level sales. The first question I have for you has been, or is what is the past resistance you've had doing sales? And if you haven't done sales, what are some things you could see yourself resisting or have felt about sales? Okay, write everything out. Could be feel like it's, manipulative. I feel like I have to convince people. I feel like sales is greedy. It's dirty. It's a waste of time. People are going to say no. Whatever resistance you've had in sales. Let's take the next few moments. Just finishing up whatever last thought or two that you're on. Okay. Who here has had a shitty experience or example of sales in their life? Like been on a bad sales call, like someone else was selling. Okay, yeah. Now, who here has felt good about buying something in the past? Small or big purchase? Interesting. If you're not raising your hand, sales are happening all the time. Every time a transaction happens, every time you buy a smoothie, every time anything gets purchased, sales are happening. Every time money leaves your bank account, sales are happening, right? And there are things that you value so much that if you stopped getting charged for them, you would be worried. Like you would do whatever you could to begin getting charged for it again. Like for instance, internet. If your internet went out, they're like, oh yeah, somehow your credit card got disconnected. Like you would connect it again because you value it so much. If your phone service went out and you like your phone stopped working, you would immediately pay for it and put your credit card back on that account to get access back to it because you value it. So it's interesting because every time sales is done well, you didn't recognize it because it just felt natural and felt good. The only times you've been able to think about sales maybe is when they were happening poorly. So that's the only examples many people have of sales. Yet people are buying all the time. Sales are always happening. But what sticks out for a lot of people is the shitty examples. And so everyone here has had an experience of buying something and feeling good about it. And has probably also had the experience of being paid and feeling good about it. So that's what we want to generate when it comes to these sales conversations. The old way of doing sales, non-consensual, pushy, et cetera, doesn't care about what you want, right? Doesn't care about what the other person wants. But when sales are done well, both people get more. Everyone gets more. Everyone gets more life. Everyone gets more health. Everyone gets more happiness. Everyone gets more. Get more money, more time. Everyone gets more. So this thinking of like somehow for me to have more, someone else has to have less. That has to go. So what I want you to do, look at your past resistance in sales and all those reasons. And I want to ask you the next question. What would it feel like for you to make sales a spiritual practice? If sales was a spiritual practice, how would you treat it? Like, think about what constitutes you preparing for a normal spiritual practice. How do you treat those? How do you treat your meditation time? How do you treat time for prayer? How do you treat time for communion with nature, God? How do you treat those times? Whatever spiritual means to you. If sales was a spiritual practice, how would you approach it? Just list out those things. I want some of you to put some of your things in the chat. Everyone put one thing in the chat at least of how you could make sales a spiritual practice, what that would look like. Yeah, honoring service. You guys can keep writing out your things, but at least drop one in the chat. Be dedicated to expanding into it. Yeah, expansive dedication. I'd step into the calls like I'm stepping up to my altar. Yeah. I would cleanse the energy. Yeah. I would enter the space with reverence. I would make it a priority. Mm. What a different way to look at sales. If you haven't felt the conviction yet that sales can be a spiritual practice, I want you to, in this moment, open to that possibility. What would it actually be like for you to treat every sales call like a spiritual practice? To make it a priority, to really listen and pay attention, to enter the space with reverence, to cleanse your energy beforehand, to step into the call like you're stepping into the altar, to be dedicated and to be dedicated to expanding it, to honor the service towards it. What would that be like? Be radical. Be radically different than how most people do sales. And it would be beautiful and it would be of service. And the thing is, when we make it a spiritual practice over a longer time horizon, our business grows way more than if we try to take shortcuts and shady tactics and so many other things. And the thing is, this word dharma, I don't know if many of you are familiar with the word dharma, but it, it translates as many, many different things. It's not just one thing, but almost like right being, the right way of being, the true way of being. It's a fine blade. It's a fine blade of dharma. It can cut you and it can heal also. It's just very sensitive how to apply it, right? Because a lot of the times our ideals, with even with spiritual life, even our ideals with our spiritual life are sometimes contradictory. Like, for instance, justice is an ideal. Anybody here like the concept of justice? That things should be just and fair? Okay, I like it too, right? I guess another way to phrase it would be like, who's a fan of injustice? Right? Okay, that's another way to, maybe you're not like justice, but you don't like, you're not a fan of injustice, right? So, okay, justice is an ideal. And then who's a fan of, like, the opposite of that would be mercy, right? And again, not in a Judeo-Christian sense, but like lending someone a hand, like giving a second chance, helping someone when they're down and can't help themselves. Both are ideals and they're contradictory. And there's many things like that in spiritual life and just in life in general, that it only takes attunement to the situation to know how to apply. And sometimes we're going to make mistakes in sales calls. Sometimes we're going to apply, hardness when we could have applied empathy. Sometimes we're going to apply just empathy and softness when we could have applied force. Both are right, but it is all in respect or in response to the environment and circumstance. Okay. How does that feel, y'all, to open up to sales as a spiritual practice, as a possibility? Feel good? Feel neutral about the idea? Feel not good about the idea? Cool. Nice. I have a question about fear. Fear is a response generated for survival. Okay. And the thing is, there's only two fears we have when we're born: the fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. That's the only two fears that you had when you're born. All other fears were learned. All other fears that you have were learned. And the thing is, if we're in a fear state, which is the survival state, the energy of survival and the energy of creation are not compatible. So if you're in an energy of fear, if you're in an energy of survival, if you're in an energy of need, by law, the energy of creation cannot be expressed. Even just biologically, like all of our like mating and reproductive systems like shut down. There's like a tiger, you're not like, Should I have another child? Right? No, it's like all those systems shut down. So it's very hard to create your vision if you are in an energy of survival, if you're in an energy of need, if you're in an energy of fear. Okay. But fear is an effect, it is not a cause. Okay. So, because you're only born with two fears, fear of loud noises, fear of falling, and every other fear is learned, I want to ask you, who taught you your fears? Who taught you your other fears? Some of y'all looking confused, but just think about it. Who taught you your fears? Yes, Susan, falling and loud noises. Yeah, parents' culture. Go deeper, Patrick. Here's something that may help, another frame that may help. Most of the time, fear is an agreement to keep someone else pleased. Who are you pleasing by having certain fears installed? This wasn't rhetorical, so write it down. Awesome. Thank you. Shane, I'm going to ask you to go deeper. There's any fear that you have outside of loud noises and falling. They were learned by someone. I know I had a fear of like being able to love, fear of like being maybe not being lovable, not being good enough. And those fears were taught to me by people in my early childhood who had those agreements that they made with themselves and with reality and were reflected in the ways that they spoke. Never being good enough, always being the victim, et cetera, et cetera. Another fear I had was being victimized. It's the one I carried with me for a very long time. People not being for me, or the environment not being just, people not seeing my perspective. So who taught it to you? I'm going to ask you to go another step with this and ask yourself, what's the agreement that you've made to keep this a problem in your life? What's the agreement you've made to keep the problems in your life problems? What's the agreements you made to keep the fears that you have fears in your life? I'll give you an example. I had this from the past when I did this exercise. I have agreed to allow my father's opinions of my capabilities and worth to determine how far I'm willing to go. Yeah, my mother with the fear of not having enough. I learned that from her, someone saying. I learned from my mother that confrontation was something bad to be avoided at all costs. And that if you were confronted, it means you're a bad person. There's something wrong with you, and that's not okay. I want you guys to think a little bit deeper about this. Just take the next few moments. Anyone struggling with this? Raise your hand. No. Okay. Everyone's doing good. Okay, just finishing up your last thoughts here. I want you to write a list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on your paper. What are 5 things someone could do or say that would piss you off? What are 5 things someone could do or say that would piss you off? All right, we getting some laughs, some chuckles. You don't know how to find out your fears? Well, just see what would make you angry. You don't know how to find out your negative beliefs about yourself? Just see what would make you angry. Because anger is just a defense mechanism to protect you from facing yourself most of the time. Anybody want to drop one in the chat? What's something someone could do or say that would piss you off? Be a little vulnerable, put one in. What's like the juiciest one from your list? Ooh. Yeah, someone condescend. What would they say in their condescension, Susan? Come on, I want to know. How exactly would they condescend you? Steal something from me or hurt someone I love. Okay. How about something personal, Shayna? Because those are both about kind of like something outside of you. Same for you, Sharita. You're crazy. You are crazy. Yeah, so Shayna, if you like had to make it a little bit more explicit, it would be you're weak. You're incapable. You're weak and incapable. I have no idea what you're doing with your life. Yeah. You have no idea what you're talking about, Patrick. I'm actually an idiot. Totally unqualified, uneducated, uninformed, imposter. Now, let me ask you this. What would it mean to not be afraid of any of the problems you have right now? What would it mean? What, if anything, what would you need to change about your belief in yourself in order to vanquish your fears? What would you have to believe about yourself in order for your problems and fears to be irrelevant? Just taking a few moments, power right. Yeah, and I want the belief under the radical self-acceptance. That's the belief. And Sheena, I want you to turn yours up. Like you're like a 5 at the volume level. I want you to turn it up to like a 9 or a 10 in volume. And like, I know I'm a powerful creator. Like, what would that be like on steroids? Like, what would that be amplified? If you had to rewrite it. Just taking another moment here. Last thoughts. Yeah, beautiful, Shayna. Take a deep breath. Mm-hmm. Having complete confidence in my abilities, I can accomplish my bigger vision because of all that I'm accomplishing right now. I can become a millionaire doing what I love while having lots of free time to have fun, travel, enjoy my family. I'm a capital C creator. Yes, love these. We're going to do a few last ones. I'm going to ask you a two-part question. First, what were your mom and dad's beliefs around money and debt? Just right for mom and right for dad. It's all right, Sheena. We're going to wrap up within that time. What were your mom? Write them out for mom, write them out for dad. What were their beliefs around money and debt? Just rapid fire. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Dad had to make it, work hard, always look for the opportunity in every situation. Money's hard to get, have to work really hard for it. Doesn't come easy. Mom always looking for a sale, bargain, maybe coupons. You want it, we can get it. Anything's possible. Throw it on the credit card. Dad, if you want it, you have to earn it. Save first, invest, spend conservatively, use debt strategically. Okay. My dad commits fraud and gambles to get money and is a thief. And my mom believes money doesn't grow on trees. Now, let me ask you this. Out of the ones that you listed, which of your parents' money beliefs are you practicing? Just circle them. Whichever ones you're practicing from the list of mom and dad you just made. Just circle the ones that you're practicing. Yeah. Just circle mark, just so we're aware. Right. I'm going to share a little short thing and then we're going to close. So, most people, and you can probably see this with some of your parents too, only make what they need. Okay. There's a story around it too. The money needed for bills and the current commitments that they have. That's what most people make and have pretty much zero left over or very little left over. Okay. Because most of us are not taught how to live based on what we want. Most of us are taught the need story. Hey, Shane, I'm going to ask you to turn off your camera. I'm going to stop your video for you. And this is going to affect you in sales big time, because if you're trying to help someone get what they want, but you're not able to do it for yourself, there's a big energetic difference that's going to be there between you and your potential client. Okay. And what's interesting is that what number is need? Anybody know? What's the need number? The need number is simply whatever your parents could afford. So it's different for everyone. For some people, $20,000 a month is what they need. And if they didn't make it, it would be a nightmare. For some people, $2,000 a month is a need. And if they didn't make that, it would be a nightmare. I haven't done this in a while. Let me just draw this out if I can find the pen. I can't find it. Basically, one of the most powerful things that I've experienced as far as this need story is mapping out what my need number would be, what my need number is currently. And then below that number, like what would be like my quote unquote, like insufficient or like poverty number. Like if I dip to that, like it would be bad. Okay, so you have like your need number, like all your bills would be paid, it'd be good. Then you have like your kind of, not actual poverty number, but what for you would be completely unacceptable. And like, oh, that number would be scary if that's all that hit your bank account for like the next 6 months straight or whatever. What's that number? Now, most people, because they're in their need story, their whole entire life, they oscillate between the poverty number and the need number. And as soon as it dips down from the need number closer to the poverty number, they're like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. And then they start doing everything to do to get back to the number to make what they need. Everybody finds what they need. And so people, it's interesting, like probably you've had this experience too in your life, like every time you've needed money, you found a way to make it work. You found a way to make it work, which is so interesting when it was based on need. Okay. But now what I want you to do is you have your poverty number, you have your need number, and I want you to create your want number. So whatever that dream number would be. I've asked you guys to do this before, but just real quick. Now, what I want you to do to have a categorical shift in the way you think about need is make your want number your new need line and make your need line your new poverty line. That's called raising your standards. Because need is simply an energetic decision you made at some point or that your parents made. And it's very interesting. My dad worked like 3 jobs growing up, immigrant family. My mom also, single mom. worked as a school teacher, made like 30 something thousand a year. And my mom has chosen to continue that same income and work her entire life. And my dad has like tripled his income since then, like 4 times his income since then. It's interesting. And what they need is different. So that's how you do a categorical shift in you make your want line your new need line. And now your old need line is like the absolute, like it would be unacceptable. Just decide, like, this is what raising your standards look like. Okay. The last question I'm gonna leave you with, and this is like your little homework, is when's the last time you did something outrageously generous? Okay. Like for instance, tipping somebody $50 to make your coffee at a coffee shop, or $100. What would it be like to take out $100 bill and tip a barista at your favorite coffee shop $100 and just walk away and not even enjoy their reaction? I want to challenge all of you to do something. Doesn't have to be that, but to do something that for you feels just very generous. Not just like cute, like, oh, like I baked some cookies or whatever. Like that's nice. I'm talking about something so disproportionate to the action done, and give it to a complete stranger. That's my exercise for all of you, because I want you to break out of the whole need story and enter this story of just giving and knowing that you're going to receive. One of my mentors said, money comes from God through people. So you can't outgive God. God's like giving everything already, but it comes through people. They're just like gracing people, just blessing people with something outrageously generous. That is your homework for this week. Okay. In the next 7 days, whether it's like, and it doesn't have to be monetary, but like, here's a $40 tip for my coffee. Here's $100 tip for my coffee. All right. That's your homework for the week. Hope you guys enjoyed this workshop. I'll stop the recording now. And if anybody has any questions,